Welcome. Welcome to Miracles with a Twist. I'm Reverend Cardona. I'm here with a very special, beloved friend and guest, Reverend Dr. Grace Telesco. Reverend Grace and I, back in 2013, had this wild idea that we would start our own seminary. And we went right into this time of an uncertainty, not really knowing how to do it, what to do. And we did research, and we brought together our two great passions, which is ministry and teaching. And next thing you know, we were making it happen. Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary is about to ordain our 23rd graduate of sacred service, and we're really excited about that. However, we're going into a new period of uncertainty because we're going into a brief sabbatical and we're not quite sure what's next. And so we've been talking about how to maintain a sense of trust, and maintain a sense of certainty, because we started out with uncertainty and we used to pray and we used to pull oracle cards. And do you remember, Reverend Grace, that one of the cards that we pulled was Vishnu? And under the card, it said trust. And we said, let's go, let's do this. And we have never been without success in our students and our candidates and our seminary. And we've been so proud of them. We have very high standards. Our graduates, they leave us really knowing what it means to be a minister of sacred service of interfaith in an interfaith path. So without further ado, I want to introduce Reverend Grace Telesco. And usually whenever we get together, we pray together before we start anything. So I'm going to ask you a couple things. If you would please start us in prayer and then tell us a little more about yourself.
Okay. So join with me now in putting our hands on our hearts, just as Reverend Laurie has always taught us, and oftentimes during class, we'll start class this way. As we come into an intimate moment with our source, Creator, Great Spirit, you who are as expansive as the cosmos and yet as personal as our heartbeat, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this space, this sacred space in the ether. Within the cosmic illusion, we come together, heart to heart, mind to mind, and engage in a sacred dialogue. Aho, amen, ashe, blessed be, om shanti, shanti, shanti.
So a little more about you, in case there's anyone who doesn't know you, but I'm sure everyone who sees this does know you. We've been together for 11 years now, 11 years with the seminary. Yeah. And we've got, I think, a great way of working together these years. And you have your own ministry. I have my own ministry. And then Sacred Journey is our joint ministry. So just a little more background, and then we'll go into some questions I have about this next step.
Okay. So, well, I'm currently the spiritual leader, spiritual director, if you will, of Darshan Center for Spiritual Evolution, and still, of course, with the seminary, acting as executive dean along with you, Rev Laurie, and but I'm in a transition time right now. We've talked about this, on the side, personally, privately, that I don't know. It's an uncertain time for me and my ministry. I've been doing Darshan since, well, I graduated in 2011, June of 2011, and then for 6 months I was subbing for a pastor friend of mine who was being treated for cancer, thyroid cancer. So I literally hit the ground running after I got ordained, and then was doing these weekly services. And then she wanted me to come on as like associate minister, associate pastor, but it was a little too Christian for me, and I really wanted interfaith, so I was like, well, we'll start our own thing. And that's what we did. We started our own thing. A friend, Salah Abdallah, who had the Serenity Room.
Yes.
The Serenity Room, I believe it was. Right? Was it a Serenity Room, or?
I think that's what it was called. Yeah, back in the day.
Something like that. I can't remember. But we were collaborating with him, and he and I and Chris, drums, Sister Chris, were calling it the Oneness Temple. And but it was too far away. It was in Hallandale. It was just like, why can't we just do this local? So we rented a space and we opened it up, and it was April 2013. We opened up a healing space, and Darshan Center was housed out of it. And we were doing sacred celebrations. That's what we called it, sacred celebrations. Instead of worship services, we're trying to get away from that Christian kind of like implication. Not that it's bad at all. It's wonderful. Yeah, we embrace everything, but to be exclusive is not what we want. So we were doing that for a long, long time. We moved because we outgrew that space. We went to a new space. Then more uncertainty happened with COVID. And I had just signed this lease for a gigantic rent, doubling it. I basically doubled the rent cost. And then COVID happened and we were shut down. And it was just really, really, talk about trust, talk about Vishnu. We had to trust, and we were able to make ends meet. But a lot of my finances and Sister Chris's finances and a lot of our time and energy just was poured and poured and poured into this ministry. And now we're not renewing our lease. We've moved to Gainesville area, and it's going to be different, but I don't know what it is yet.
Right. And that's what we're going to talk about today is, how being okay with not knowing, in the Taoist philosophy, they say a master is born at a time of unknowing. If you can be at peace with the transition time and being open to whatever it is that spirit has. I want to just supplement, before we go on with that, I want to supplement a little bit of information. You mentioned Sister Chris. This is your spouse of many years. You and I were both facilitating separate ministries and congregations. So yours was called Sacred Celebration. Mine was called Celebration of Spirit. And so now when we have our students come together, we have them perform Sacred Celebration of Spirit. We married those two ministry services, interfaith services, praise services, prayer services. We were trying to find a way to make it all inclusive.
Right.
And so now it's Sacred Celebration of Spirit. We brought those two together. And during that time, we came back together. We knew each other professionally through hospice work and through Sister Chris's work. And then I found out that you had gone to seminary, and it turned out to be the same seminary. And that's how we decided that we would create the Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary. So COVID happened, but we continued. We still graduated students. We were doing Zoom classes, but now you've moved away and you're in Gainesville. And we thought, well, this is a great time to look at what it would be like to maybe reconfigure, since we don't have a space anymore. So the thing about Vishnu and trust, it reminded me that the one thing you didn't tell us that you are an ordained Swami as well. You and I both follow a very dedicated mysticism path. And I think that our interfaith students, our graduates are also mystics in the making, because we're looking at how to integrate spirituality from a very broad sense of connection with the divine. But my path tends to be concentrated more on A Course in Miracles, and yours, if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, here he is. This is Swami Jyotirmayananda. Today's date is the 26th.
August 26th.
Today's the 26th. So this is a perpetual calendar that I have on my desk here. And this is Swami Jyotirmayananda. He is the only living disciple of Swami Shivananda. You might be familiar with Satchitananda, who is Swamiji's guru brother. So Satchitananda's guru is Shivananda. Chinmayananda's guru is Shivananda. Vishnu Devananda, the one in Yoga Warehouse in Fort Lauderdale, again, disciple of Shivananda. So Shivananda had initiated a bunch of swamis, into the sannyasi lineage, right? And so Swami G is a light that continues to shine in Miami. You just recently had the occasion.
Yeah, I had the
with
pleasure of meeting him.
him, and he's 92 years old, and he's still going strong. And so in 2010, I took my initiation with Swami G. In 2007, I came into recovery, and I had been NYPD 20 years, lieutenant, first responder, ground zero. Uh, Walked away from that job with a lot of accomplishments, a pension, and PTSD and depression.
Sure, yeah,
As a result of the ground zero 9/11,
yeah.
because I was there about a year and a half at ground zero. And so it really messed with my my psyche. But anyway, I started self-medicating a little bit, and a lot of it, if I'm being honest. And so I went into recovery as a way to get better. I had to take certain action steps. And so that first one was admitting that I had a major problem, and that the self-medicating was just going to be like a nightmare, right? If I continued on that road.
Yeah.
So I went into recovery, and they talked about getting a spiritual director. And I was like, spiritual director, what is that? I would love to have one of those. What is that? And I asked God in my prayers, because I had been raised Catholic, and I'm not one of those Catholics that disparages the faith. I don't. I don't like when I hear people say I'm a recovering Catholic, as if
Mhm.
Catholicism is a disease to recover from. No, I feel that it was a stepping stone for me. I feel like it was an amazing foundation, and I still appreciate the ritual and the traditions. Some of the dogma I may not agree with at this point in my development, but so I have Catholicism and the saints. I would say a practice of intimacy with the saints that really, really I love. And also then the mystical aspect of Hinduism, which is studying the Vedanta. And the Vedanta philosophy, if you know anything about it, you know it's so similar to Course in Miracles.
Yeah, there's some sort of first generation course teachers who say A Course in Miracles feels like a Christian Vedanta. Although I don't consider it a Christian study, it uses Christian language, but certainly it's almost like modern languaging for the Vedic studies.
Yeah.
So when we pulled that card back, let's go back to 2013. When we pulled that card, as you know, just wide-eyed and wondering, can we make, which turned out to be the only boots on the ground seminary. I just want to plug us for a second. You know, we have done something that's very unusual, because we're the only interfaith seminary that exists in Southeast United States. But we were very uncertain. We were kind of like, you know, just not sure if it was the right thing to do. And we pulled that card, and it was Vishnu, who, of course, you resonate with much more, I think, than what I understood at the time. So can you talk about that a little bit? How Vishnu falls into your line of trust?
Well, Vishnu is the maintenance energy, right? So yeah, I don't feel like you can't talk about Vishnu unless you talk about Brahma, creator, not Brahman with an N, but Brahma, which is the creator, which is also very tied in with Saraswati energy. So Saraswati is the creation. So when I'm writing music, or when I'm doing something that is like in the performing arts, creatively, even teachers, us as teachers, Saraswati energy is really important, because it's the creator element, if you will, right? And then you've got on the other end of, you got creation, which is beginnings, and then you've got endings, which is Shiva. Everybody is pretty much familiar with Shiva, and the feminine Shiva, the feminine energy, of course, is in the form of like Durga and Kali. These are the Shakti, the Shakti energy. It's the energy of Shiva, really, it's the female energy. So you've got Shiva on one end, which is about endings, but everything has a beginning, creation. a middle, which maintains itself, right? Sustains itself, and then an ending. And so Vishnu is the sustainer.
Mm.
And it goes with trust, because like if you want to think about the Abrahamic traditions, the Israelites in the Jewish scriptures, wandered the desert for 40 years searching for Canaan, and they were very upset because they had no food, and they were hungry, and they were thirsty, and they were complaining, and God gave them manna. And God gave them not only manna, which was in like a bread. He didn't just do it once. God didn't just do it once. God did it over and over again. And then when they wanted water, God provided the water. And then they were still complaining because bread wasn't enough. They were like, we want meat. And God gave them quail, right? So this is the sustainer in our lives, Vishnu. You have to trust. Sometimes it feels like the water faucet or the hose is got no more water in it. And you keep on going over, messing with the valve and looking inside of it. And where's God? Where is God? I don't feel God. Where's Vishnu? Well, you better trust, because
Mm.
when you trust in Vishnu, Vishnu will provide. You're just not, it's not in your time maybe, and it's not the way in which you wanted it to be, but it's happening. So Vishnu is always present, and Vishnu is the sustainer of the universe. But the trick for us is trusting it.
Yes, that's the main thing. There's a line in the Course in Miracles that says trust would solve all problems now. Like right now, if we could just open to trust and realize, just like we did 11 years ago, when we pulled that card, there was a shift in our energy, like, oh, it just seemed like now it's real. Now we can do it. Let's make it happen. And we trusted. Now here we are, and we're back in this place of moving into uncertainty and having to trust the process that will bring us full circle into whatever is next. We don't know what's next. And I know that some of our students, some of our graduates are concerned, some of them have expressed concern. And it reminds me to tell this story. It's a story that you're probably familiar with about the farmer whose horse ran away from the farm. And he had a good friend who was over, and he was like, oh my God, that's terrible. Your horse ran away. And he was like, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. The next day, the horse comes back with some cows and some other horses trailing behind him. And his friend says, oh my God, that's wonderful. And he goes, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. So his son gets on one of the horses, falls off, breaks his leg. The best friend says, oh my God, that's terrible. Your son broke his leg. He's like, maybe yes, maybe not. The next day, the cavalry comes and they say, we need young, healthy men to join the army. He goes, oh, I can't. My son has a broken leg. Well, wasn't that wonderful? Maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, trust is about saying, regardless of how things look, we can call it anything. We could call it wonderful. We can call it horrible, but we don't really know, because it's all whatever is in the process of developing the ways in which we need to go. There's a lesson in A Course in Miracles that I want to read to you real quick. It says, it's from lesson 25. It says, I do not know what anything is for. I don't know what anything is for, no matter what is happening, whether it's going to be good or whether it's not. All we do know is that it's right for us, whether it turns out, like you were saying, maybe it may not be the way we wanted it to be. So it goes on to say this: we perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of our goals. These goals have nothing to do with our own best interest, because the ego is not you. And so when we don't know what anything is for, like an ending, a time of uncertainty, the thing that will carry us through is trust. And the trust that we have right now is the trust that has sustained us from the beginning of time, when we sat down in a little gazebo outside Storks, right? And you found this little rock, and you said, oh, let's pray on. We put our fingers on the rock. We said, on this rock we will build our seminary, and we did. And so we've come full circle. And so I guess my message is more for our graduates, our alumni, and anybody who might be still interested, is that, just trust the process. You and I will always be looking to enrich our spiritual path and to enrich the spiritual path of those around us. It just may not look exactly as it has looked these past 11 years.
The other thing I think is really, really important is to not be fooled by appearances, as you said.
Right.
We received a message, a very strong message. Now, this was right before COVID. We went to see our spiritual advisory council member, Lyle Maxey, who
Yes.
is this in the Yoruban tradition. And we went to see her because we were like, we're not getting enough. We're not getting enough candidates. You know, we're doing advertising. We spent $2,000 on a
Yeah.
commercial. Oh my gosh, we just been trying and trying print media, online media, a whole bunch of things that we did to try to like really get the word out about this great thing we're doing.
Right.
That everyone really, any candidate that's come through our doors has graduated. Yes, an interfaith minister. Yes, that's what they were promised. Yes, that's what they paid for. But much more than that in their spiritual evolution and in their transformation, right? So we were facilitators of that. Our
Yes.
curriculum, we always talk about, there's a manifest curriculum. There's the thing on the right on the edge there that's right in your face. That's the curriculum that you have to learn. You know, first year is all about the world religions, second
Yes.
year all about practical aspects of ministry. But there's a latent curriculum. There's a latent content. It means hidden. It means maybe not very obvious at first. And so when we went to Lyle, she told us to do a couple of things to Oya, Winds of Change.
Got
And
us.
then all of a sudden COVID happened, shut our doors. We
Yeah.
had online. It was like, oh my God, Oya, what did you do? You know, to
Right.
us. But then the message we got was the message. And you know, you said 23 students will be ordained. And on December 1st, we will have marked 23 students.
Yes.
You say, well, that's not really successful for all these years. 23 students. I mean, there are some places that a whole class would be 23.
Right.
You know, so are you sure you're thinking that you're successful? And the message we received, I mean, and it really was Spirit talking, was don't be fooled by the quantity, because that's not what we're measuring here.
That's right.
It's not what's being measured here. In terms of the mystical significance, there's something much deeper that you cannot see, that is invisible, that you must trust. So like, what if, and we've had a few students who have passed away, who
Yes.
have gone into the spirit realm. So what if their seminary experience helped them to get to that level, which we feel is maybe tragic because they were so young and then they died. But what if, just for a minute, we help to facilitate an evolution, a spiritual evolution for them, which we would never know and we'll never know, and it's none of our business to know. It's sort of like the Lamed Vav Zatakim that's like in quiet.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
quiet, mysterious helpers. And I feel like that's maybe what we've done over these years. And even for people who never joined the seminary, but came to our ordination and walked away going and saying to us, wow, this is amazing. In fact, one of our council members, our advisory council members, said that we've taken interfaith to a new level.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it has so much to do with that latent content and the digging deep. We have a section of time, we have a period of time with every class, we call it dig deep, because the students have got to go into certain exercises that they get from the material that they have to read. Every year, they have exercises that they have to do that make them dig deep within themselves. And then they have to explain to us what occurred during the execution of those exercises, because they had to think about them, they had to do them, they had to see how it felt to them. And if we can take any of those exercises and integrate them instead of just talking about them, and I think that's really what spiritual growth is about, is that we've integrated and we've made some deep commitments to a willingness to change the parts of us that need to surrender the ego and open up to the trust of the higher self.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so when we talk about the 4 prongs of the seminary, the 4 modalities, if you will, is ritual, reflection, which is the dig deep piece, and then we have wisdom, because we teach various whether it be world faiths and all the intricacies of that, or practical aspects of ministry. And then, finally, so we've got ritual, we've got reflection, we've got wisdom, and we've got energy. Because we also talk about, various energy modalities. But here's what I want to give, like, an example to the viewers who may not understand. So our students are given a lot of homework. It's a lot of homework, and it's
very high standards. Yeah.
It's rigorous
Yes.
rigorous training. Okay. And it's tip of the iceberg stuff, by the way, because we also have an advanced degree segment of the seminary. So we have the ministerial track, and then we have the advanced degree track.
Right.
Advanced degree is master's in interfaith theology or a doctorate in interfaith theological divinity. So when I say tip of the iceberg, the first year student gets just like, here's a little sample. It's tapas. It's interfaith tapas.
The appetizers.
Right, as appetizers. So it's not,
Right.
no, it's not the whole enchilada, which they can receive in the advanced degree if they want to really dig deep. But I'll give you an example. So that it's homework time, let's say, and let's say it's even like towards the end, and it's at retreat, and they have to do like an exam, and they're rigorous, but we're also very supportive. And so the student, the seminarian, becomes very upset. There's an upset. What's the upset? Maybe it's ego, maybe it's competition, maybe it's perfectionism, whatever it is. Maybe it's from my past where, every time I had to take an exam, I got anxiety and I threw up. Whatever is going on for the student, it's more than meets the eye. And so that's the latent content, so that when Dean Laurie will pull a student aside and say, what's really going on for you here that you're having this meltdown? What is really happening here? Is this really about the exam? Is this really about the content of the curriculum? Or is this about your getting rubbed, as Rumi says, in order for you to be polished? And that is the latent content.
Yeah. Say that full Rumi quote. I love that.
So how can I ever become polished if I'm annoyed by every rub?
Right. And the rubs are an essential part of the bumpy road to enlightenment, as one author once said, the book. But, it's so funny because somebody said, Annie Lamont, I don't know if you know her, she's like a writer's writer. She's a philosopher, but she writes for writers. She does writing retreats, but she's also very spiritual. And I saw a quote.
Oh, thanks. Wow.
Yes.
Thanks. Wow.
Yes. And she had a quote the other day that said, the road to enlightenment is awkward and difficult. So make sure you eat snacks and read magazines. And I thought, it's so true. We still have to be regular people, but in our regularness, in our everyday 24 hours ahead, the priority still has to be the understanding that whatever we go through, I call it like the universe is our scripture. Whatever we're going through is still grist for the spiritual mill. It's still for us to integrate and see, how am I going to approach whatever it is that's happening while I'm having my snacks and eating my magazines and playing with my puppy or whatever it is that's regular life. But how am I still making my relationship with the divine a priority, which means how I interact then has to come from the concept of my spiritual practices, integrating them continuously. And, we might make mistakes. We might have spiritual amnesia. We might trip on that bumpy road. And it's about having that self-correction within, that willingness to do the self-correction and trust once again, that every decision I make, I'm making it for some greater good that I may not even be able to see. Like you said, our beloved students who've passed on, we don't know what they could see. We don't know what they're seeing now. We're pretty sure they're blessing us from the other side. But we also lost a very beloved colleague and friend, the Sheikh, who we would have thought was going to be, as we do with everybody, that he was going to be on our advisory council. He did the Islamic call to worship. And I think that shook us up a little bit when he had his second stroke and we found out that he wasn't going to survive. But the beauty that we found in that experience was going to him, going to the family and being welcomed and realizing that we did have a place with them. And that's what we want our students to know, that there's a place for anyone who's really, truly dedicated to walking the talk, because it will have its effect. It will be a light that shines on others. As you said, Lamad Ved Zadakaim, that you say it so much better than me, but that pillar of light.
Everybody thinks so.
that beam of light that we're stepping in to repair the tear, as best we can. That's ulam tikam ulam, but the part that we want to participate in with our students, with whatever it is that we see or don't see, to continue moving forward and trust for whatever comes next.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also this this part of me that I really rely on what Swamiji would call satsanga. In fact, that's what August 26th is about. He says, do japa, which is prayer,
Yes.
which is recitation of the divine name. And that recitation of the divine name can be anything. Jesus, 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 Om Jesus, Jesus, Jesus Christ. In fact, that's a mantra that Swamiji shares with folks who are Christian and follow the Christian path. But do japa, so pray, so raising yourself by your own self, raising your higher self by your lower self, if you will.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
And what's really cool about japa is you'll see a mala beads, and folks will be pulling the bead, one bead at a time. Chickies.
Chickies, she woke up.
So you're pulling yourself, and it feels like your ego is pulling, or lower self is pulling itself closer and closer to God with the mala.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah, it's very symbolic.
So do japa, and then it says enjoy satsanga. Satsanga is good association. That's what we're doing right now. And how many times I might feel really upset with myself in my spiritual practice or spiritual growth or lack thereof, and I will call you and you will help me. And so the way japa helps my lower self pull closer to my higher self or God, in the same way, satsanga helps pull. It's like a life preserver. So I'm drowning, you throw it out to me, the rope, and I hold on to it, and you bring me in. And that's what satsanga is. That's what community is. That's why spiritual community is so important. And that is also why I feel guilty. I'll tell you this truthfully, that I feel very guilty that the spiritual community of Darshan is ending in the physical sense. It's ending in Oakland Park. It's ending in Fort Lauderdale. So we are, of course, we're going to be relocating, and I don't know what we're going to do. We have a 5-acre ranch here, and I don't know. I know that I need to be guided, not my ego doing it. I'm not opening up a McDonald's franchise. This is God giving me inspiration, and I don't know what form it's going to take, but community is important. And that's also why Sheikh Shafayat, as a leader, when he passed and went on and elevated to the spirit realm, his community is in an uncertain, not that they're uncertain about their beliefs, not that they're uncertain about their faith practice,
of course,
even uncertain about their direction, but it's a feeling of being lost, just like Israelites wandered for 40 years until they were able to, figure it out. But mostly it wasn't about the destination. It wasn't about the promised land. Because if you remember, Moses didn't get to go. Why? Because he allowed his ego to get in the way. And God did not invite him into the promised land. What's the promised land? It's enlightenment. It's a state of enlightenment. So, but more importantly, and I'll end with this, it wasn't the destination of Canaan or promised land. No, it was the journey. It was
Yes,
the journey there, and it
it's
was the
that,
latent content to get there.
it's every morning when we wake up, we have those 24 hours ahead to be on that journey. And we have, we have wake-up calls. This is a wake-up call, it's part of, it's part of the vehicle with which I can get on to float through my day and to move through with the reminder. And, I have a little alarm that goes off throughout the day to remind myself, because who knows where our minds can go at any given time. And I just want to say with that you are also there for me. You're my, we call each other and we might be talking about horses and puppies, but we can also say, can you put on your spiritual director's hat for a moment? And we will do that for each other. And we really need each other in that respect. And I want to thank you for that, because you always rise for me. And we can, I just want to wrap it up by saying that I believe so much that every step we take is a possibility of we are walking on holy ground. And even when we're in cyberspace, like this, it's holy, it's sacred. And my spiritual community, LMC Interfaith Ministries, we meet out on the beach. I call it the open air ashram, because there's no walls. It's the sand, it's the sky. I always say sky above, sand below, peace within. We have the ocean, and we have community that's so sacred, so beautiful. And someone once said to me, wouldn't you like to have a mega church? And I said, no, I don't want a mega church. I want to be able to look eye to eye. And that's what we get to do with our smaller sanghas. And it's deep love and deep spiritual commitment, because we don't just sit there and say, okay, see you next month. We say, we will hold each other in the light. We will maintain our commitment. We will take this time together and bring it into our hearts so that we can then extend it out into the world. So, well, I wish I would have told you to bring your guitar and sing a song for us, because you're such a great musician.
Thank you.
Would you like to? Do you have any? Yes, please. We'll do this again. Any? Would you like to share any words of wisdom before we wrap it up?
I would like to shamelessly plug that we have 2 more times. We have September 29th. And that is Val Jennings, minister in training, going to be doing her second and final Sacred Celebration of Spirit at the Seminary location, also the Darshan location, which is 840 East Oakland Park Boulevard, Suite 102, September 29th. It's a Sunday at 6:30. It's 1-hour service. And you get to hear Val talk about
our student.
Yeah, she's going to be ordained December 1st. She's going to talk about letting go is the only thing I can do.
Something about letting go, which is actually perfect, because we're letting go is also about trusting the process of whatever happens once you let go. So what I'll do is I'll put all those dates and all that information in the comments section once this video drops.
Great.
And,
you could also add.
Yes.
I was going to say, if you could also add October 27th is Saints and Sages. It's one of my favorite. I told you I have a saint practice. So we get to get dressed up like our beloved saint, or sage, or ascended master, or angel, or ancestor, whatever you want to do. You come to the service. We honor the saints and sages. It's our last service. It's the final one, and then we'll have a nice reception afterwards. Yeah, I'll put that in the comments, and every time we meet between now and then, because hopefully this will continue this conversation, because we're just like with our students' first year, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. And just for anybody who happens to be listening, who's going through a time of uncertainty, or who's going through changes, this reminder, we're talking about the sacred journey of uncertainty. It is a sacred journey. This is a time to dig deep for your faith and your trust, and your knowing that whatever the external circumstances are right now, they may not be showing you what it is about to be. So thank you so much for being with me, Reverend Dr. Grace Telesco. I love you, and God bless you. See you soon. Bye. Bye.